Welcome to the Rebel's Edge from Miami Beach. And we've got a stock right now that Pete says was the world's most expensive clothes hanger. Well, it got a lot cheaper in the last few years. We'll have that and a lot more on the Rebel's Edge. Bang! Well, Pete, yes, Pete did call Peloton the world's most expensive clothes hanger. And he did that repeatedly on CNBC. And when you look at where that stock is, we'll cover it in a minute, folks. But oh my gosh, Pete, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, and to those harsh guys who pushed against me, Scott Wapner and others, who said, well, how can you say that? That's ridiculous. And I said, look, people are social. People want to go to gyms. That's why this thing is temporary and it's way overvalued and it soon will be a clothes hanger. Well, it's not even that expensive anymore, to your point, John. So that, but we'll cover that in a second. But the reality is, those of us that work out day in and day out really understand this, I think, a lot better than those that don't. And that's why I think we're seeing what we're seeing out of Peloton.
I have to agree. Folks, he is Pete Najarian. I am Jon Najarian. I'm here in Miami Beach on top of one of the yachts that we own down here, but it's for charter. So if you need a yacht when you're in Miami, you've come to the right place. It's right across from the Fountain Blue, in fact, folks, which is just immediately to that direction here. And there have been a bunch of conferences, Pete. I have counted now 6 conferences that I've spoken at in the last 7 days. So Puerto Rico, Miami, Atlantic City, now back down here. It's been a crazy ride. But that's not why you tuned in to hear about all that. You tuned in so that you could hear Pete tell you about the next most expensive clothes hanger that might be out there. And Jared Wenkman is running, of course, all of the stuff that's coming down here on that side of the screen, all of this, the topics and so forth that we cover. Jared is running all that, the explosions you just saw, sometimes snowboarding bulls or bears or, any of the noises you hear, including Future Man, Pete. Yesterday, when we did Fantastic Futures, we actually had Atlantic City Batman, who's a real thing. He's a real thing, Pete. It's some vigilante that dresses up like Batman, except he's got a samurai sword in his back that he pulls out. And
what could go wrong with that?
Nothing could go wrong with that. That's exactly what the world needs. All right. Well, we're going to dive into the Rebel's Edge, folks. Thank you for joining us. Pete, we always start off with the macro minute, and I'm going to say that the macro minute was what drove the markets down yesterday. Jerome Powell saying he's giving the investors a wake-up call, meaning don't be looking for a cut in March. Might be much further out into the future. In fact, it might be summertime, Pete.
You know what I like about that, though, John? Even though Powell, I think, overstepped, he got a little too aggressive on how he approached this whole thing, but he probably was frustrated because you and I have heard so many of these guys go on television, go on the radio, wherever, and say, well, we're going to be in for at least 6 cuts this year. We're in for this many cuts this year and all the rest of it. How on God's earth do they know that? They don't. And because the reason why is Powell has been transparent and he has told us it'll all be up to the data. When the data delivers, we will react, and then we will react. And obviously, right now, I think what they're looking for is, all right, well, are the numbers there for us to cut? The numbers aren't, according to them. And so because of that, they're not nearly as aggressive as some of these folks expected them to be. But the reality is it's still data-based. That's what they're looking at. And I think the only issue I have with yesterday is I think that Powell could have been a little bit better on how he communicated that, as opposed to just saying, we don't think it's even going to be March. We don't know, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, he has been probably the most transparent Fed chair, Pete, as you know, and you've said, and I have agreed. I think he tells you what he really thinks. And sometimes some of those words get interpreted differently. Yesterday, we were down 320 points in the Dow. We've recovered about 200 of those points so far today. If it plays to script, Pete, they'll keep squeezing to try to hurt the guys that got shorted yesterday on that big drop. Yep. All right, let's talk a little bit about fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures!
The futures man flying across the screen. Pete, I'm going to say it's frozen concentrated orange juice futures because they're moving up. They're up substantially from the lows, and it kind of reminded me of trading places and so forth when we looked at that. But, because the Duke brothers were trying to corner the market on frozen concentrated orange juice futures. And you know who took advantage of it, Pete? Those guys right there.
You got to love Aykroyd. You got to love both of those guys. Let me tell you, it's absolutely fun. Eddie Murphy's always been great. My fantastic future is this, really quick. Volatility. Right. We talk about the VIX all the time, right? The volatility index of the S&P 500. Well, on 1/22, January 22nd, we were all the way down at about, call it 1250, give or take 52-week lows, right? And all of a sudden, we have made this explosive move, and here we are, February 1st, and we're up at about 14, nearly 14 and a half today. So we've got some definite volatility kind of leaking and getting back into the markets and raising some of those levels, John. I think that's something we want to keep an eye on. If we start getting close to 16, then all of a sudden we will see who's a real trader and who's not. Because right now we're seeing a little bit of a lift, but this could easily return back into the 12s. We'll see if it actually gets up closer to 15.
Yeah, as Buffett said, Pete, when the tide goes out, you know who's swimming naked. Yeah. When the VIX goes up, you'll know who's in trouble and who's a little overextended to the bullish side. All right. That expensive clothes hanger is, of course, Peloton, folks. And pull up a chart sometime, folks, and look at that and go 2 years back or even 3. And what you'll see is just an incredible implosion. And believe it or not, Pete, when people saw these earnings today in the pre-market, the stock was actually up a little, but it was up. And then it tragedy struck, to quote Rosanna Dana, and it just cratered to the downside. In fact, if we close below 430, Pete, it'll be a new closing low for this stock that's erased 99% of its value in the past couple years.
No, but everybody's going to keep buying them, right, John? I mean, that's what we were told in 2020. Everybody's going to keep buying these things. And then it didn't happen. It started to slide, and this slide has been brutal. There's still a huge short interest here, 15 to 18%. Monstrous debt, that's not good. How about paid subscriptions down 16% year over year on the digital side? There's a lot of things that you can point to right now, John. It's pretty interesting for sure. The net loss of about 54 cents, that's definitely not good. The guidance being pretty daggone weak, that's not very good. That's why we sit here where we are right now, 52-week lows. We hit 421 on the lowest side that I saw today, John. And we very easily could close down at least very close to that, to your point, by the end of the day. It should be interesting.
Yeah, and Pete, they're hanging their hats now on the idea that they've got a rental program, a bike rental program. And the fact that, yeah, it's on, some of the social medias and things like that. But you look at this stock over $150 a share, folks, just a couple years back. And now to see it down here at $4 and like Pete said, 21 cents, 421 was the low so far. That's a pretty ugly drop. So the bears have feasted on this one. All right, let's take a look at Etsy, Pete, because Needham, a Needham analyst, a woman who just does a fantastic job over there, put out a lot of quotes today, and she had a buy rating on it. She did that January 23rd, so just over a week ago. Anna Andreeva is her name. And basically, Pete, she said the combination of Elliott management pushing them in a direction to create value, as well as some of the partnerships with whether it's, doing something between Elliott and Pinterest and things like that. She was pretty bullish on the stock. it's up double digits today.
Yep, she's got a buy rating on it, John. She's been very strong opinion on this particular stock. I think that what we're really looking at is how much activists, not necessarily, everybody always views it as, oh, the activist is there, a stock's going to go down, these guys hate it, and whatever else. No, in this case, 13% ownership, and they have a strong belief that this thing actually can recover and do pretty well. It is a lot closer to the 52-week lows. $58 is about where the lows were today. It's sitting around 72. Its 52-week high was a lot closer to 150. So it's got a long ways potentially to go. And it seems to me that Elliott has a great game plan. They've got their seat on the board. They want to be a part of this whole thing on the turnaround. And obviously, when you've got somebody else like this woman from Needham who really thinks highly of this, that's going to be something very positive as well. We've had a lot of unusual option over the years in Etsy, but I think this one really has another path that could go to the upside after this push to the downside. And I think with Elliott in their corner, I think they've got a good shot to recover a lot.
Yep, I have to agree. And, you know, a lot of people just look at Etsy, Pete, and think of it like a Michael's store, you know, just tchotchkes and things like that. But they do an awful lot of stuff with Etsy that Michael's stores can't, of course. And I like the way that one trades. All right, Pete, let's take a look at Cimpress because these guys, it's more or less the parent company of a bunch of companies, Pete, like Vistaprints. So if you've ever seen, you know, places that do printing like that, that's one of the things that new business formation is central to their success. And they're up double digits. In fact, they pushed up to 20 some odd % on the day, Pete. Very strong performance. EPS came out at 214 compared with a loss of 46 cents in the year ago quarter. So I say they've turned the corner, wouldn't you?
They've not only turned the corner, John, they hit 52-week highs, but they have 99. So this is a stock that had a really nice report. A lot of people out there, I think, paying attention. And when I say that, 3 times normal volume in the first 2.5 hours of the day. So there's a lot of activity there, a lot of folks diving in and having this stock have a heck of a move to the upside. You mentioned that earnings of 214 versus what they did just a year ago where they lost 46 cents. That's huge. That's a monstrous number. And with the revenue up about 9%, they've got 5 different business segments. They seem to be clicking on just about everything, John. This is a company that's really moving in the right direction and I think could get up there into the triple digits at some point in the not too distant future. It's pulled off a little bit, but with a market cap of only about $2 billion, I say only because we know there are some monster. We talk about $1 trillion valuations of some of these different names, but this is a stock that when you consider the fact that it's a $2 billion stock market cap, that's still pretty small in today's gauge. So I think this is something that really could start to move to the upside again and maybe press through, like I say, into the triple digits.
Well, it's certainly moving pretty fast towards that direction, Pete. Let's keep an eye on that one, folks, CMPR, or this one. This is Nextracker, NXT. And this one is up 20% today. Very strong numbers out of these guys. Basically, they beat Q3 adjusted earnings and revenue, so top and bottom line, if you will, and they raised guidance. Pete and I like to refer to that as the trifecta, folks. Now, you could miss on one of those. One thing you can't do is give them weak guidance. They didn't. They gave strong guidance above analyst consensus. The earnings were almost double, Pete, what the consensus was. They were looking for 49 cents. They came out at 96. So this one pretty much hitting on all cylinders as well.
I would say so. It hit 52-week highs also, John, at $55, up 20+%. There was not a number there that didn't look fantastic. Not just good, but fantastic. Our revenue was up 38% year over year. Like you said, the earnings, you're looking at close to $1. Last year was closer to 46 cents. They talk about strong demand just about everywhere. We're talking solar with this one. They've got great free cash flow as well, nearly $300 million. I can't see anything in this report that tells me anything negative. By the way, with all of this, with the run-up 52-week levels, 52-week highs, it's got a PE of 16. So despite the fact that it's made the kind of run that it's made, this is a value stock still from that perspective, a 16 PE. I mean, holy smokes, this is one to keep on. And you might want to put this in your notebooks, folks, because if the day comes where for whatever reason it gets a sell-off, maybe there could be an opportunity there. This thing is definitely kicking butt right now into 2024.
Yep, certainly is, Pete. Like you said, solar tracker and software for solar. It's in Fremont, California, not too far from the Tesla factory, Pete. So this one is one you do want to keep on your radar, folks. All right, Pete, Red Zone Sports time. Let's dive into whatever you've got. It's probably something leading into the Super Bowl as well as maybe the NBA. How's that for my Kreskin impersonation?
That's not so bad. Hey, don't we have a video, though? Do we want to hit your video?
We have a Kreskin. Yeah, that's right. Check this out, folks. This was posted by, as you see there on the screen, Frank at frank.hrelja. And he posted this. He does a lot of interesting videos, folks, memes in particular. But take a look and listen to this.
This guy has accurately picked the last 5 Super Bowl champions. So this right here is Peter Schrager. You probably recognize him from Good Morning Football and Fox Sports. Every season, 30 minutes before kickoff in week 1,
look at the different
Peter
shirts
makes
on the
his
guy.
Super Bowl prediction, and he never gets it wrong. Listen to him say in 2019 that Mahomes was about to win his first Super Bowl.
I think the Chiefs finally get over the hump. Super Bowl 54. 50 years the Chiefs have waited to get to this point.
Here's him in 2020 predicting Tom Brady was going to win the Super Bowl with Tampa in his first season there.
Guess who I have representing the National Football Conference in the Super Bowl? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks are the Super Bowl champs.
Here's him in 2021 predicting Matt Stafford and the Rams were going to win the Super Bowl.
Jeez.
This year's Super Bowl champion feature a quarterback.
That's a big call, too. That's a big call.
In 2022, he had Mahomes winning his second Super Bowl.
The winner of Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona this February will be
He's wearing the right number, even.
Going to happen this year?
Trent McDuffie returning a pick 6 late in the fourth quarter. Kansas City Chiefs yet again being your Super Bowl
Got a
champions.
Kelsey
So does he
jersey
have
on,
no
John.
script, or is he just a genius?
Genius.
This guy.
He is.
Genius.
And notice that, folks, 30 minutes before the whatever, Good Morning Football or whatever, at the beginning of the season, Pete, before a game is played, he's making these calls. So that's pretty incredible. And if you paid attention to the video, you saw that he had Mahomes beating Green Bay. Of course, it wasn't Green Bay in the Super Bowl, but nonetheless, he had the right winning team and the right quarterback. So pretty amazing, given that it's an oblong ball. It doesn't bounce like a basketball, Pete. So this guy's pretty damn good.
He is pretty damn good because I'll tell you, John, I was shocked and wrong. I thought Baltimore would beat him. I really did, and I was wrong. First out there to say it. Fun games. I'll tell you what, this year's NFL I thought was great. But let's start off, however, John, with the NBA and Adam Silver. So I've always been pretty harsh on this guy, right? And I know you're probably trying to hold me back sometimes because it frustrates the hell out of me, though, because Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, do most people view those guys as maybe at least in the conversation of best basketball players of all time? I think 99% of the world would say Michael Jordan was the GOAT. I think they'd also say Kobe Bryant not that far behind him, probably behind maybe a player or two, but basketball time. You know what both of them had in common? They didn't sit out games. They didn't ever do load management. These turds that are out there, old Pop down there in San Antonio who basically tanked, we all know that. He believes in load management, which is a load of crap, because Michael Jordan said, when somebody wants to come and see me play, they want to see me play. They don't want to see me sitting on the end of the bench laughing it up with everybody like LeBron does and some of these other players. So I'm ticked off about that, and here's what ticks me off even more. You've got Anthony Edwards, Minnesota Timberwolves, the number one team in the Western Conference this entire year, right? So far this year, they've been number one. Now, he made some critical comments about the referees. We all know you really can't do that, but here was the words that he used, John. He goes, "This was bad. As a matter of fact, I think it was terrible. It's not fair, but you know what? It's all good." That's what he said. You know what that cost him? $40,000. Now, fast forward a day later, we're playing against, we being the Timberwolves, playing against the Dallas Mavericks. Well, Luka doesn't need to play. Let him sit it out. Oh, Kyrie Irving doesn't need to play. You set it out. Because you know why? Because they're so far down right now that they figure they're going to lose either way. So why not have the load management? If that isn't the biggest crock of crap that you could ever imagine, I mean, honestly. So tell me about this, John. Why does Adam Silver, by the way, I think he just got a new contract. How can they possibly do this when you look at the NBA and they wonder why their ratings aren't anything even they can't even sniff a Pro Bowl rating out of the NBA, and yet these guys allow this to happen. What do you think of this whole thing? Am I too harsh right now?
No, you're not. And he does not deserve to be the commissioner any longer. He should be fired. But, if they're stupid enough to pay him big money to let crap like this go on, think about this for a second, folks. So he fined Edwards $40,000. We all know for pro basketball players, they drop that, many of them, on a night at 11 here in Miami, Pete, where I'll be tonight, by the way. 40 grand. I see them dropping, the credit card totals like that, Pete, all the time. Meanwhile, the guys sitting on the bench, let's say you got a couple guys like Kyrie. Again, this is not me ripping on Kyrie. The coach is the one that's letting him sit. It's not like Kyrie saying, "I'm not going to play." Yeah. Well, so let's say you're making $40 million. $40 million means you are getting, out of 82 games, Pete, do the math, folks, $487,000 per game. Do the math. All right. So he sits along with some other guys. Maybe, Pete, they've got $1 million worth of players' salaries or more for that one game sitting on the bench. And meanwhile, people have spent their hard-earned money in Minnesota or in Dallas or any of these other NBA cities to watch the superstars play. What if you paid $500 or $1,000 or whatever? I don't care if you paid $100, and I don't know if there's an NBA ticket that cheap, Pete, but if you paid $100 and you're seeing Kyrie sitting on the bench, and again, this is not me ripping Kyrie. This is the coach's fault, and this is only allowed because Adam Silver is an idiot.
So you're sort of on the same side as me on this.
I'm on the same side as Pete.
All right, next. How about the NFL? Because we don't have it's not the Super Bowl just yet. It's now the Pro Bowl. And everybody's looking forward to that, right, John? I mean,
I can't wait.
Probably one of the most important games of the entire year is the Pro Bowl. But, it used to actually kind of matter. People used to kind of care about the Pro Bowl, right? I mean, it was fun to see Joe Montana throw into somebody else other than Jerry Rice and all the rest of it and all the different players that are in there, right? And having a good time. But they were still taking it relatively seriously. They lost that. And when they lost that, the game really did change. So back in 2000, it was 13 million people were ready to watch that Pro Bowl because they still cared enough back then. 6 years later, it went to 6 million. It popped back up again, but it's pulled right back down again. 2022, 6 million people watching. John, why do they have these? When you really look at it, whether it's Major League Baseball or the NBA, when they both don't play defense, they let each other do silly things, and they score 190 points to 189 points or whatever. I mean, at what point do we just say, hey, look, you get the award, you're a Pro Bowler, and blah, blah, blah. That's it. You don't have to play in a game. You don't have to run around out there in some weird outfit that you've decided you think is really cool or whatever. You get the reward and you say, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'm all pro and I get a little extra money.
Yeah. I mean, Pete, you and I grew up with Max Winter. He was one of the owners of the Vikings along with Bernie Ritter. And these were both friends of ours, folks. Mm-hmm. Now, they were significantly older than us, but nonetheless, Max Winter pushed the NFL to move the Pro Bowl instead of doing a rotating Pro Bowl, Pete. He pushed them to do it in Hawaii. Why? Because the players got a nice vacation out of it. They take their families. It was great for Hawaii tourism. But the real reason, of course, was you get the players to show up because you're giving them, they weren't making $40 million a year. These days, you offer a player a trip to Hawaii and he's going to go, maybe if you throw in a private jet and my own chef and blah, 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 maybe they'd go. But other than that, a trip to Hawaii when you're making $20, $30, $40 million a year, you can do that on your own. You don't need to do it, have the NFL offer you that. But anyway, ever since, Pete, they took the football out of the Pro Bowl, and instead of, lining up, and I know there were things like no blitzing because, you didn't want to get players hurt. You didn't want to make the quarterback look bad and all that. So it was really tough on the defense, of course. To Pete's point, that's why, like the NBA, they would just score a crap load of points. But it's not really football. They're not watching football. I'll point out, Pete, that you were right when you said that even a crappy Pro Bowl gets almost 7 million viewers, 6.8 million or whatever it is, million viewers. The NBA would kill for that.
In a championship game.
And now that the NFL is really behind, Pete, this touch football, they're going to try to make a pro touch football league, of course, as a division of the NFL, because just like Taylor Swift, it helps promote the NFL. Yeah. And in touch football, as Pete and I play, we were at we all festooned out in those pro jerseys and everything, Pete, out in LA for that Super Bowl. You and I were there, and that was a touch football game with Flutie and with Michael Irvin and all these great players.
The Bronx brothers.
Touch football. But at least you see their face, because in touch football, it's not all covered by the helmet and the mask. And it's really rare that some guy's going to get hurt. And if he does, it's probably one of the hacks, not one of the pro players, former pro players, because when we did it, Pete, there were no active pros on the field. When you and I did it, I guess that was 2 years ago in 22, there weren't any pros. They were all former pro players, a couple of Gronkowski's brothers and things like that. And it was fun. I get that. I don't know if it'd draw 6 million rating on TV, but that's what the NFL needs to do, is really push the touch football side of it. And like you said, just say you're anointed, you're a first team Pro Bowler, congratulations, and stop with all the nonsense.
Yeah, I think so too, John. And I think all the sports need to figure out that these whether it's midseason or the end of season, that they just don't matter and no one cares. I mean, all you got to do is look at the audience. But I guess there's still money there. You still get some TV money, so the NFL's going to squeeze them for everything they can get. But because those numbers, even though they're terrible by NBA or NFL standards, they're still better than almost anything else out there. So that's why they do it.
Yep, it's true. Well, folks, if you'd like to try our new research product, because we have a new AI-driven product that is fantastic. If you're somebody who's tracking stocks and you want to get the best research available, especially for this price, less than $1 a day, you can get marketrebellion.com/research. This is an AI tool that Pete and I have been part of developing this. It is technical analysis, it is fundamental analysis, and it is sentiment analysis from all the socials, from Reddit, from Twitter, from Facebook. It pulls that sentiment out, and it lists also, I mean, if you type Microsoft, if you type Apple, any of the stocks, 35,000 global stocks, you can just type away and say, hey, show me what the technicals are. Show me what the fundamentals are. It has all of it on that one page, Pete. And that you just scroll down and you can see support, resistance. You can see all the fundamentals. And like I say, we are offering that right now at $19 a month. So less than $1 a day per trading day. And you can use it 24/7. So check it out, marketrebellion.com/research. That's marketrebellion.com/research. You will thank me for it if you're somebody that had been paying a lot of money to get somebody's opinion. This is an AI-driven product, and this is what AI is all about, folks, delivering fast and accurate information. MarketRebellion.com/research. Well, it's going to do it for us, folks. As you know, we travel on Fridays, so the Rebel's Edge is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll be back Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.